I'm finally tackling a project I've wanted to do for a long time, a definitive, no punches pulled ranking of all 30 cities I've visited in Mexico. We're going to grade every single one of them on a combination of transit logistics, local culture, financial value, and overall livability. Hey fellow wanderers, my name's Ian, I'm known as WanderBeard around these parts. Over my last few years of long-term travel, I've put thousands of kilometers on my boots across Mexico. I've crossed international borders on foot, I've navigated remote desert oases, and explored deep into the tropical southern states. This is part 1 of a 3-part series. Today we are going to count down from the bottom 10, starting at the absolute bottom of my list at number 30, and working our way up to number 21. So let's get into the real unvarnished truth and my picks for the best and worst places to stay. Coming in at the absolute bottom of my list is number 30 is Cancun. Now I know some people love it here, but hear me out. Cancun takes the lowest spot for me because it represents the absolute peak of hyper-commercialized mass tourism. The famous hotel zone feels completely disconnected from real, authentic Mexican culture. It is an artificial bubble dominated by massive Americanized high-rises, overpriced luxury shopping malls, and loud, aggressive nightlife venues that cater exclusively to spring breakers and vacationers. Walking down the street means constantly running the gauntlet of high-pressure vendors, timeshare salesmen, and tour operators trying to separate you from your cash. The prices here are intensely inflated compared to almost anywhere else in the country, and if you're looking for soul, or history, or a laid-back cultural experience, the sheer hustle of Cancun can become incredibly draining, incredibly fast. That said, it's not completely without merit, which is why it's a great logistical starting point. You cannot deny the sheer convenience of Cancun International Airport. It's a massive global hub, meaning flights here are often the cheapest way to enter Mexico. Furthermore, if you skip the hotel zone and head inland to downtown Cancun, known as the El Centro area, the vibe does tend to shift a little. Downtown gives you access to fantastic, authentic local taco joints, cheap neighborhood markets, and the main ADO bus terminal, which is your gateway to the rest of the peninsula. Moving on to number 29, we head on over to the rugged desert landscape of Baja California, to the town of Guerrero Negro. This place is a masterclass in how tough travel logistics can truly get. Getting to Guerrero Negro is a true test of physical endurance. Highway 1 running down the peninsula is incredibly narrow, completely beat up, and lacks shoulders on the highway. There are sections of this road so severely potholed and degraded that your long-distance bus will eventually grind to a halt, creeping along at a painful 10 to 20 kilometers per hour just to avoid snapping an axle. If you happen to visit off-season, outside the winter gray whale migration windows, the town itself is intensely quiet, windswept, and leaves you with very little to see or do. But my absolute breaking point here was the infrastructure. I needed cash, and I went 0 for 4 on local bank ATMs. Every single machine was either physically broken or completely out of money. This forced me into a painful 4-kilometer trek under a blazing, oppressive midday desert sun just to find another option, all while staying on high alert to dodge the aggressive packs of wild barking street dogs. But, despite the absolute collapse of the local infrastructure, the community hospitality here is pretty amazing. Guerrero Negro acts as a crucial, safe oasis and rest stop when you are breaking up the massive journey down the peninsula. Local, family-run hotels like Terrazal offer incredibly clean, secure, and comfortable rooms to crash in after a punishing day on the road. And the food at places like Restaurant Cazuelas is an absolute lifesaver. The service was lightning fast, the beers were cheap, literally matching the supermarket prices, and before you even order, they hit your table with a massive spread of complimentary fresh tortilla chips, house-made salsa, and a bowl of hot vegetable soup to revive your spirits. At number 28, we stay in Baja, but head all the way to the southern tip, looking at the quieter half of Los Cabos, San Jose del Cabo. While it markets itself as a peaceful alternative to Cabo San Lucas, San Jose del Cabo is experiencing massive, unchecked population and commercial growth. The infrastructure is struggling to keep up, leading to heavy traffic congestion, rising prices, and a creeping sense of overdevelopment. But the single most frustrating thing about this town was what happened to the coastline for me. The corporate luxury mega resorts have taken over completely. They've erected literal 10-foot-high concrete walls that stretch for kilometers along the main road, completely blocking any view of the ocean and cutting off physical access. If you're a local or a budget traveler wanting to put your toes in the sand, you're forced to hunt down one single, heavily funneled public entry point just to get past the walls and see the water. If you can look past the resort walls, the actual heart of the town is quite beautiful. The historical district is built around a lovely, open central plaza anchored by the Mission Church that tracks its roots all the way back to 1730. It has an artistic soul, especially during the weekly evening art walks. For breakfast, you have to find Café Calafia. They offered up an incredible plate of traditional Mexican chilaquiles, paired with some of the best specialty coffee on the peninsula. The local hospitality can also surprise you. When I checked into Hotel Casa Sisi Inn, the air conditioning in my standard room had a glitch, and instead of making me wait, the staff immediately stepped up and offered to upgrade me to a massive executive queen suite with a gorgeous private courtyard at absolutely no extra charge. Landing at number 27 is Todos Santos, a town heavily romanticized as a bohemian paradise, but one that presents some real logistical quirks. Todos Santos has a very specific, slow pace of life, which can cut both ways. If you're running a business or editing video on the road, the local infrastructure can make things difficult. The Wi-Fi across town was notoriously spotty and slow. Rideshare apps like Uber and Didi claim to operate in the area on paper, but whenever you open the app to actually book a ride, you'll get a frustrating "no cars available" screen. This means you're completely at the mercy of expensive local taxis or your own 2 feet. Furthermore, because it's a high-demand magic town, affordable budget lodging is scarce downtown. The cheaper rooms and hostels tend to be located a solid 20-minute walk outside the historic center, requiring you to navigate pitch-black, unlit, dusty, dirty roads at night just to get home after dinner. Oh, and because you're tucked away working or editing, it's dangerously easy to lose track of time and completely miss those famous, fast-dropping Pacific Ocean sunsets. But there is a reason the Mexican government officially designated it as a Pueblo Mágico. It is a stunning, laid-back Pacific surfing community with an artistic energy that blows the commercial chaos of the southern resorts out of the water. The streets are lined with brilliant independent art galleries, artisanal shops, and a vibrant night market illuminated by hanging flags. Café Lix is a fantastic sanctuary. They offer top-tier breakfast options and powerful ice-cold air conditioning. If you stay at the Todos Santos hostel, they have built excellent private sleeping pod units. Plus, walking the historic center lets you take in legendary landmarks, like the historic Santa Terra Sugar Mill and the world-famous Hotel California. Heading back east, number 26 takes us deep into the interior of the Yucatan Peninsula to the colonial city of Valladolid. The primary adversary in Valladolid is the climate. The humidity here is immense, heavy and thick, and it hits you like a physical wall the second you step outside. When the sky breaks, the tropical downpours are violent, dumping so much water so quickly that the colonial streets and historic stone sidewalks completely flood in a matter of seconds. If you throw on a traditional rain jacket to try and stay dry, the humidity just traps your own body heat inside, turning you into a sweaty, miserable mess anyway. Additionally, because Valladolid sits directly on the main highway corridor connecting the Riviera Maya to Chichen Itza, the absolute center of town can get heavily overrun. Massive tour buses roll in by the dozen at midday, packing the central square and stripping away that quiet, isolated, hidden gem feel you hope to find in the interior. But if you can time your walks around the tour bus crowds, Valladolid is visually spectacular. It's built on a highly navigable, scannable grid layout that makes exploring on foot incredibly easy once you understand the street numbering. Walking down the famous Calzada de las Frailes feels like stepping directly into a historical painting. The street is lined with beautifully restored colonial facades painted in soft pastels, draped with colorful overhead hangings, and filled with boutique cafes. At the end of the street sits the convent San Bernardino, built in 1552, and for the entry fee of less than $3, you can explore its historic halls and see an absolute masterpiece of colonial engineering in the backyard. A massive 17th century wooden water wheel constructed directly over the mouth of a deep, underground cenote spring. It also serves as a perfect affordable base camp for exploring some of the ruins like Chichen Itza or Ek Balam. At number 25 is San Ignacio, an incredibly unique town that definitely embodies the concept of a desert oasis. San Ignacio is tiny. It's home to just about 500 permanent residents, and its remote location means dealing with extreme desert conditions. Midday temperatures routinely skyrocketed to 36 or 37 degrees. Between noon and 4 p.m., the streets emptied out entirely, turning it into a literal ghost town where you can't find an open shop or a soul to talk to. The local museum, which holds information on the area's famous ancient cave paintings, seemed to run on a highly erratic schedule and can be closed for days at a time with zero notice. Digital infrastructure was practically non-existent. The Wi-Fi signals here were pretty weak, making basic uploads a real struggle. To top it off, the long-distance bus drop-off point is located well outside the town center on the main highway, meaning you're completely stranded unless you arrange for a local taxi to meet and bring you in. However, if you appreciate slow travel and deep history, San Ignacio is mesmerizing. As you drive through miles of barren, rocky desert, the landscape suddenly drops into a lush canyon. Dominated by this green canopy is the Mission San Ignacio Cadaccaman, an architectural marvel finished in the 1700s. The church is constructed of massive, dark volcanic lava rock, standing in beautiful contrast to the surrounding gardens. For food, you have to track down La Huerta, a beautiful little spot where they serve up rich, traditional huevos rancheros, and generously bring a full steaming carafe of coffee straight to your table. It's incredibly peaceful, completely authentic, and staying at local independent family motels like Motel Posada is incredibly affordable. Number 24 brings us right up to the northern border city of Tijuana, a city that often gets a bad rap, but does offer an intense, high-energy introduction to Mexico. Tijuana can be a massive shock to your senses. The moment you step through the border gate, you're hit with waves of punishing heat radiating on the asphalt, and you have to immediately run a gauntlet of highly aggressive taxi drivers, tour hawkers, and street hustlers vying for your attention. Requires a thick skin and high situational awareness to navigate smoothly. Another issue for travelers is that online mapping reviews and business hours here can be notoriously inaccurate. I spent a long afternoon tracking down a highly rated, locally famous spot called Tacos Trini, only to arrive hot and exhausted and find out it had been permanently closed for a long time, forcing me to pivot on an empty stomach. But if you understand how to navigate a border city, the logistics and food value here are almost unmatched. Crossing on foot via the San Isidro point of entry from San Diego is so streamlined, you can literally ride the California Blue Line trolley right to the final stop, walk across the bridge, and clear customs in literal minutes. Once you are in, the culinary rewards are spectacular. Legendary institutions like Tacos El Gordo serve up mind-blowing carne asada and El Pastor tacos, sliced right off the spit onto fresh, handmade corn tortillas right in front of you, for only $1 or so each. It's also an incredibly efficient place to get your travel logistics sorted early. You can buy a local SIM card, load it with data, and access reliable bank ATMs with low fees right near the border zone. Coming in at number 23 is Mérida. The city has an unbelievable cultural soul, but it also handed me the single most painful logistical disaster of my entire trip thus far. The tropical weather systems in Mérida can turn hazardous in a heartbeat. When a storm hits, the downpours are so intense that the historical colonial streets flood with a foot of rushing water within 5 minutes. On my very first evening in the city, I was navigating a flooded sidewalk after dark. The standing, murky runoff completely hid a massive, unprotected, 3-foot deep hole where the sidewalk met the street gutter. I stepped directly into that void, falling hard and severely injuring my knee and leaving me completely bedridden and immobile in my rental apartment for an entire solid week of my trip. Beyond the physical hazards, Mérida also has restrictive scheduling, in that if you're an independent explorer, be aware that almost all major historic churches, municipal museums, and cultural sites are strictly closed to visitors on Sundays and Mondays, which can throw a wrench into a short itinerary. However, if you can stay on dry land and avoid the sidewalk hazards like me, Merida is a staggering cultural powerhouse. If you time your visit around late October for Halloween and Dia de Muertos, the city hosts the breathtaking Paseo de las Animas, which was the procession of souls. Tens of thousands of locals paint their faces like intricate skulls, dress in traditional white garments, and march through the streets, flanked by thick clouds of copal incense and thousands of beautiful street altars honoring family members. Every single Sunday, the city does shut down its major historic avenues to car traffic, transforming the entire downtown into a massive pedestrian festival filled with live music and traditional dancing. It also serves as the ultimate launchpad for visiting the ancient Mayan ruins of Uxmal, which are conveniently open on Mondays and offer a far more intimate, uncrowded experience than the other major archaeological sites. I do hope to return to Merida one day and experience it again, as I truly believe it probably belongs higher on my list, but for now it remains in number 23. At number 22, we head offshore to the Caribbean island of Cozumel, a destination that requires you to escape the cruise ship dock bubble to truly appreciate it. The primary barrier, I guess, to enjoying Cozumel is simply getting there. The 35-minute passenger ferry ride across the channel from Playa del Carmen can turn into a very punishing, stomach-churning ordeal. Once you step off the boat onto the island, the immediate waterfront pier zone is hyper-commercialized and intensely aggressive. You are instantly swarmed by a wall of vendors, shouting to push rental cars, scooters, and mass-produced souvenirs at highly inflated prices. The island microclimate can also track unseasonably hot, routinely running 5 to 6 degrees warmer than the mainland, making midday walking along the exposed concrete malecon incredibly draining. But if you walk just a few blocks inland from the water, the cruise tourist veneer vanishes, revealing a wonderfully chill, slow-paced island paradise that is highly affordable on a budget. Local food legends like Mr. Taco, who's been cooking up incredible dishes on the island since 1999, serve up some spectacular meals for cheap. For an incredible weekend experience, La Casa Mission offers a massive traditional brunch spread for just 139 pesos, complete with unlimited coffee in a historic garden setting. For accommodations, skipping the beach resorts lets you find gems inland, offering massive, quiet suites equipped with icy air conditioning, a peaceful pool courtyard, and free coffees waiting for you in the lobby. It makes for a perfect, affordable island getaway, and a great spot to explore the other parts of the city. Closing out part 1 of our countdown at number 21 is Tulum, a town of stark contrast where ancient history seems to clash directly with the modern influencer culture. The weather for me in Tulum felt like a running joke. The coastal tropical patterns are wildly unpredictable, and during my stay, I left my hotel room on 4 separate occasions in a single day, and it started pouring rain the exact second my feet hit the pavement, only to clear up to perfect sunshine the moment I retreated back inside. When it does rain, the infrastructure struggles, drenching the main town streets instantly. But the biggest detractor here for me was the cultural shift. The beachfront and jungle roads are heavily dominated by what locals call the Tuluminati, an ultra-wealthy, flashy, international expat and tourist crowd. The scene has really dramatically inflated prices for food, for taxis, and entry fees, giving the main commercial zones a trendy, superficial party vibe that can completely overshadow the local Mexican charm and history of the region. So why does it rank ahead of Cancun and the others? Because the history here is absolutely unmissable. The world-famous Tulum archaeological site features ancient Mayan ruins perched directly on high limestone cliffs, overlooking a brilliant turquoise sea and pristine beach below. It is one of the most visually spectacular historical sites on Earth. Furthermore, if you completely avoid the expensive beach zone and stay directly in Tulum Centro, you can find some phenomenal lodging deals. Places like Hotel Corazon de Jade offered massive king beds, private garden patios, and lightning-fast Wi-Fi. Centro also keeps you close to excellent, cheap local taco stands and reliable, low-fee bank ATMs tucked safely away from the tourist traps. So that wraps up part 1 of my ultimate 30-city Mexico countdown. We've covered everything from broken ATMs and high-pressure tourist zones to falling headfirst into flooded sidewalk holes, but we are just getting started. In part 2, we'll be moving up the ladder into the middle tier, positions 20 through 11, where the transit gets smoother, the culture gets deeper, and the competition gets a whole lot tougher. Drop a comment below and let me know if you agree with where Cancun and Tulum landed, or tell me your favorite spot in Mexico. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. And remember, life is short. Wander. And I'll see you in the next video.